The church smelled faintly of lilies, their sweetness almost suffocating in the heavy air. Rain tapped softly against the stained glass windows, as if the sky itself mourned with me. I sat in the front row, my hands trembling against my knees, staring at the polished wood of the coffin I never thought I'd see so soon. My wife's name was etched in silver, a cruel reminder that the life we built together had ended. The hum of whispered condolences blurred around me, voices dipping in and out like waves I couldn't keep afloat on. I thought grief would feel like fire burning through me. Instead, it was cold, settling into my chest with a weight that left me breathless. My daughter clutched my arm, her small fingers digging in as if she feared I would vanish too. That's when I felt a shadow lean closer. Her sister's perfume something floral and sharp cut through the scent of lilies. Her voice, low enough that only I could hear, brushed against my ear. "From now on," she whispered, steady and deliberate, "you belong to me." The words rooted me in place. I froze, not from comfort, but from something far more unsettling. My name is Daniel. For 12 years, I built my life around one woman, Anna, and the daughter we brought into the world together. We weren't extraordinary people, not in the way that makes headlines or fills magazines, but the life we shared had a rhythm that was ours alone. I worked as a mid-level project manager at a construction firm, steady enough to keep a roof over our heads, never daring enough to chase anything grander. Anna taught music lessons from home, her days filled with piano keys and violin strings, her evenings filled with laughter at the dinner table. The three of us lived in a modest house on the edge of town, where the garden never seemed to bloom the way she hoped, and the paint always peeled a little more each winter. Still, it was home. Every creak in the floorboards carried her presence. Every quiet Sunday morning held her voice humming in the kitchen. Now, those same spaces feel hollow. The silence is sharper, almost mocking. My daughter Emily is only 7, yet she looks at me with eyes too knowing, as if childhood has been stolen from her in a single day. She has stopped asking when her mother is coming back. She knows. And still, every night I hear her whisper goodnight into the dark, waiting for an answer that never comes. The funeral was meant to be a farewell, but for me it was only the beginning of a new kind of loneliness. Friends came and went, offering casseroles and polite reassurances. They told me time heals, as if healing is something that happens without tearing you apart first. After the last car drove away, after the final plate was scraped clean, I found myself staring at the empty chair where Anna once sat, wondering how many more nights I'd endure that silence. And then there was Clare, Anna's younger sister. She had always been different from Anna, sharper in the way she spoke, restless in the way she carried herself. Where Anna softened edges, Clare seemed to press against them. She lived 2 towns over, working in a high-end law firm, her life a string of late nights and polished appearances. I never thought of her as more than family through marriage, someone who entered and exited our lives in brief flashes, holidays, birthdays, an occasional visit. But at the funeral, her presence felt heavier. The way she looked at me wasn't the way people look at a grieving brother-in-law. Her gaze lingered, unblinking, as though she was measuring something inside me I hadn't offered. And when she leaned in with those words, "From now on, you belong to me," it wasn't just a statement, it was a claim. One I hadn't asked for, one I wasn't ready to understand. In the weeks that followed, I found myself caught between 2 shadows. The memory of the woman I lost and the unexpected force of the woman who remained. The days after the funeral blurred into one another, each morning heavy with the same question: how do you start a day when the person who gave it meaning is gone? I tried to keep the routines alive for Emily's sake, packing her lunch, tying her shoes, walking her to the bus stop. But every step felt rehearsed, like I was pretending to be a version of myself that no longer existed. One evening, just as I managed to coax Emily into bed, the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, there was Claire standing under the porch light with a bottle of wine in one hand and a casserole dish in the other. She was dressed sharply, as if she had come straight from work, her hair swept back in a way that made her look untouchable. "I thought you could use some company," she said simply, brushing past me before I had the chance to respond. It was the first time I'd been alone with her since that whispered claim at the funeral. I wanted to ask her what she meant, but the words lodged in my throat. Instead, I watched her move around the kitchen like she belonged there, setting the dish in the oven, pulling glasses from the cupboard as though she'd done it 100 times before. We sat across from each other at the table, the same table where Anna once laughed, and Emily once spilled juice across her homework. The silence was unbearable, yet Claire filled it with casual remarks about work, about traffic, about how tired I looked. She poured wine into my glass, her eyes never leaving mine. "You can't go on like this," she said finally, her voice softer now. "Emily needs you, and you need someone to steady you." It was the first time anyone had acknowledged the truth I was too ashamed to admit. I wasn't steady. I was unraveling. But hearing it from her stirred something complicated inside me, gratitude laced with unease. Over the next weeks, Claire returned often. Sometimes with dinner, sometimes with toys for Emily, sometimes with nothing but her presence. She'd sit with Emily and help her with homework, her sharp lawyer's mind somehow patient enough to explain multiplication tables. I watched from the doorway, torn between relief and guilt. Relief that someone else was filling a gap I couldn't. Guilt because every smile Emily gave her felt like a betrayal to Anna's memory. One Saturday, I found Claire in the backyard with Emily. They were planting flowers. Anna's old gardening tools scattered around them. The sight made my chest tighten. Claire looked up at me then, dirt smudged on her cheek, her expression softer than I'd ever seen it. "She wanted this garden to bloom," Claire said quietly, almost to herself. "Maybe it still can." It was a small moment, yet it lodged in me like a seed. For the first time since Anna's death, the house didn't feel completely empty. For the first time, I felt the possibility of life pressing against the walls of grief. But underneath that flicker of hope was something else I couldn't name. Something dangerous. Because every time Claire's hand brushed against mine as she passed a plate, or her laugh filled the air where Anna's once lived, I felt a current pulling me toward her. A current I knew I shouldn't follow, yet couldn't ignore. And it all began with that whispered promise at the funeral words that now echoed louder with each passing day. Grief has a way of splitting a man in two. One half clings to the past, replaying moments until they blur, desperate not to forget. The other half stumbles forward, guilty for every step that doesn't ache. I lived between those halves, restless, unsure which side would destroy me faster. Claire's presence only deepened the fracture. Some days she felt like a lifeline, someone who understood what I could not say out loud. Other days she was a shadow pressing too close, her words carrying weight I wasn't ready to bear. One night, after Emily had fallen asleep, I found myself sitting on the couch with Claire. She had come over again, uninvited yet not unwelcome. The TV hummed in the background, though neither of us was watching. I could feel the warmth of her body beside me, the faint brush of her sleeve against mine. "Daniel," she said quietly, "do you ever think Anna knew this would happen? That she'd leave us like this, and I'd be the one standing here with you?" The question struck me like a stone. I turned to her, startled. "Claire, don't!" But she pressed on, her voice steady. "She loved you, and I loved her. But she knew how much I cared for you, even back then." My chest tightened. Memories flickered small glances across family dinners, moments I had dismissed as nothing. The way she sometimes lingered when she said goodbye, the way her eyes softened when Anna wasn't looking. I had buried those things, chalked them up to imagination. But now, with her words laid bare, the past shifted under me. "I can't," I whispered, more to myself than to her. "She's gone, and I can't betray her memory." Claire's eyes glistened in the dim light. She reached for my hand, her fingers firm. "This isn't betrayal. This is survival. You're drowning, Daniel. I see it in your eyes every time I come here, and I won't let you drown. I won't let Emily grow up watching you fade away." Her words cut through me. She wasn't wrong, I was drowning. Every morning I woke with the weight of loss pressing me down. Every night I lay awake counting regrets. And yet the idea of reaching for Claire felt like stepping onto a road I could never turn back from. I pulled my hand away and stood, pacing the room. The walls felt too close, the air too thin. "You don't understand," I said, my voice shaking. "Anna was everything. She was the anchor that kept me steady. If I let you in, if I let myself feel this, what does that make me?" A husband who replaced his wife before the soil on her grave even settled? Claire rose slowly, her expression both hurt and resolute. It makes you human. It makes you a man trying to live, not just survive. Anna wouldn't want you to be a ghost in your own house. The silence that followed was unbearable. My heart pounded, my throat burned with unshed words. I wanted to scream that she was wrong, that Anna's memory deserved more than this. But another part of me, the part that woke in the night longing for a voice beside me, knew she was right. Later that night, when the house was finally quiet again, I walked into Anna's music room. Her piano still stood in the corner, untouched since the day she died. I sat on the bench, running my fingers over the keys, but no sound came. Instead, I remembered her laughter, the way she tilted her head when she played, her voice soft as she guided Emily through simple notes. My heart clenched with longing so fierce it left me breathless. And then, unbidden, Claire's voice echoed in my memory. "From now on, you belong to me." The words had once unsettled me, but now they tangled with my grief, stirring something I couldn't quite name. Was it comfort? Was it fear? Or was it the unbearable truth that part of me wanted to believe them? The tension built in silence. I found myself avoiding her calls, yet counting the hours until I saw her again. I told myself it was for Emily's sake she needed family, a woman's presence, stability. But deep down I knew it was more than that. I was pulled toward Claire, torn by a desire that both terrified and steadied me. One evening, I caught Emily drawing at the kitchen table. She had sketched 3 figures, herself, me, and a woman holding her hand. But it wasn't Anna. The hair, the sharp lines of the face, it was Claire. When she saw me looking, Emily smiled. "That's Aunt Claire. She makes the house feel less lonely." Her words pierced me. My daughter already saw a new shape forming in the space her mother once filled. And in that moment, I realized the choice looming over me wasn't just mine. It was hers too. The storm inside me raged louder. Between loyalty to the woman I lost and the undeniable pull toward the woman who remained, I was standing on a fragile edge. One misstep and everything could shatter. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening, months after the funeral. I had worked late, drowning myself in reports and schedules at the office just to avoid the silence at home. When I finally walked through the door, the house smelled faintly of rosemary and baked chicken. Laughter drifted from the kitchen. There they were, Claire and Emily, sitting together at the table, plates already set, the scene looking dangerously close to a family dinner. Claire glanced up as if she had been waiting for me. "Sit," she said simply, her voice carrying both warmth and command. I lowered myself into the chair, my body tense. Emily, blissfully unaware of the storm inside me, chattered about school, about a new song she had learned, about how Aunt Claire helped her with math. I nodded, forcing smiles where I could. But inside, a question echoed louder than her words. Was this what my life was becoming? After Emily went to bed, I found Claire in the living room, gathering her things. She paused when she saw me, her expression unreadable. "You can't keep avoiding this, Daniel," she said quietly. "I've been here for you, for Emily. But I need to know, are you going to let me in or shut me out?" Her eyes locked on mine, unflinching. There it was, the demand beneath all her gestures, all her whispered words since the funeral. She wasn't asking for gratitude. She was asking for me. I opened my mouth, but nothing came. My chest tightened with guilt and longing, with fear and need. I turned away, pacing the room, searching for air that wasn't thick with expectation. "Claire," I said finally, my voice low, "I don't know how to do this. I still wake up reaching for Anna. I still hear her voice when the house is quiet. And yet, when you're here, it feels like I can breathe again. Do you understand what kind of betrayal that feels like?" She stepped closer, her hand brushing my arm. "It's not betrayal. It's choosing life. Anna is gone, Daniel, but you're not. Emily's not. And I'm here. Don't punish yourself for being human." Her words pressed against the rawest part of me. For so long, I had resisted out of loyalty, out of fear, out of love for the woman I lost. But standing there, with Claire's eyes searching mine, I realized I couldn't keep hovering in the space between past and present. A decision had to be made. I exhaled slowly, the weight of it leaving my chest like a confession. "Then stay," I whispered. "Stay tonight." Her eyes softened, victory and relief flickering behind them. She didn't embrace me, didn't rush forward. She only nodded, as if she had known all along this moment would come. That night, after she left Emily's room, I sat alone in the darkened living room, the house unusually still. The choice I had made pressed heavily on me. Not just a moment of weakness, but a step into a future I couldn't yet imagine. For the first time since Anna's death, I had chosen something, not survival, not memory, but someone living, breathing, present. Whether it was right or wrong, I didn't know, but it was mine. The morning after felt different. The house wasn't louder, not exactly, but the silence carried another weight. It wasn't the empty hush of grief, it was something in between, a pause before the world adjusted. Claire made coffee in the kitchen, moving with the same quiet confidence she always carried, as if she belonged there. Emily patted in, still in her pajamas, rubbing her eyes. When she saw Claire, her face lit up in a way that made my heart ache. She climbed into her aunt's lap without hesitation, leaning her head against her shoulder. For Emily, it seemed so simple. She had lost a mother, but she hadn't lost love. It was still here in another form, filling the spaces left behind. Children don't question the shape of affection, they only cling to it. For me, it wasn't simple at all. Every glance at Claire was a reminder of Anna. Every laugh they shared in the kitchen felt like an echo of what I once had, twisted into something both comforting and unsettling. Over the next weeks, Claire began to weave herself into our lives more seamlessly. She picked Emily up from school when work held me late. She stocked the fridge, rearranged the cupboards, left her books on the coffee table. The house no longer felt abandoned, yet each trace of her presence rubbed against the ghost of the woman who had once been there. One night, after Emily had gone to bed, I found myself folding laundry beside Claire. The task was mundane, almost laughably so, but it struck me that this was the first time in months the house felt like a home again. Claire glanced at me, catching my stare. "You're still fighting it, aren't you?" she asked. I hesitated. Part of me feels like I'm betraying her every time I let you in further. She set the shirt down gently, her voice soft but unwavering. "You're not betraying her. You're carrying her forward by choosing to live." She would have wanted that. I wanted to believe her. Maybe I even did. But belief doesn't erase guilt, it only reshapes it. The shift became more evident the night I opened Anna's music room. For months, I had kept the door shut, unable to face the silence inside. But with Claire beside me, I turned the knob. Dust clung to the piano keys, the air stale and unmoving. Claire ran her hand over the instrument, her expression unreadable. "She loved this room," she whispered. I nodded, throat tight. "I haven't been able to touch it." She pressed one key gently, the note trembling in the air. It wasn't Anna's song, but it was something. And in that fragile sound, I felt the line blur, not between past and present, but between holding on and letting go. That night, I realized transformation doesn't always come as a grand revelation. Sometimes it arrives quietly, through small actions. A cup of coffee made by someone else's hands, a child's laughter returning to a quiet house. A single piano note breaking months of silence. I hadn't replaced Anna. That was impossible. But I had allowed space for something new to take root in the soil of my grief. And in that growth, painful and uncertain as it was, I could see the faint outline of a future. Not the one I planned, but the one that remained. It was a Sunday afternoon when the world seemed strangely still. The sky was clear, the air sharp with the promise of autumn. Emily was in the yard, chasing leaves that skittered across the grass. I stood at the kitchen window watching her, my hand resting against the frame. Behind me, I heard Claire's footsteps, soft and deliberate. She didn't speak, just stood beside me, her presence filling the silence. For a long moment, we both watched Emily laugh, the sound rising into the crisp air like a reminder that life still insisted on moving forward. I thought of Anna then, not with the crushing weight of loss, but with something gentler, a thread woven through the fabric of what was becoming. Her absence no longer felt like an open wound, but like a scar I would always carry, shaping who I was. Claire glanced at me, her eyes steady. She didn't repeat the words she whispered at the funeral, yet I heard them anyway. "From now on, you belong to me." Only now, they didn't strike me with fear. They lingered like a question I had already begun to answer, not with certainty, but with quiet acceptance. The kettle whistled on the stove. Emily called for us to come outside. And as I turned toward the door, I realized the story of my life was no longer about endings. It was about the fragile courage to step into what comes after. And in that small, ordinary moment, I let the silence rest. Have you ever stood at a window, like Daniel did, wondering if life could ever feel whole again after loss? Grief changes us, but so does the quiet decision to keep moving, to let new voices fill the silence. Sometimes it comes gently, through a hand on your shoulder, or a child's laughter reminding you that not everything is gone. If this story stirred something in you, if you've ever carried love and loss in the same breath, share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us what helped you keep going or what you're still holding on to. Your words might be the light someone else needs tonight. And if you want to hear more stories that whisper to the heart, remember to follow this channel. There's always another story waiting to be told.